Hey, this is Jay.
And this is Chelsea.
Welcome to the Shifting Perceptions podcast.
We are bringing you inspiration to live a more creative lifestyle because our favorite people are the ones that choose the path less traveled.
Welcome to episode 3 of Shifting Perceptions. This is Jay Alders. Our next guest is our good friend Eric Goodman. Eric avoided back surgery in his mid-20s and went on to create and teach foundation training to the world. If you have chronic back or neck pain, you do not want to miss this. He's worked with Kelly Slater, Dean Potter, Lance Armstrong, and the men's U.S. Olympic water polo team, to mention a few. We also talked about being a new parent, life on the road, yoga, surfing, and magic mushrooms. Friends, I give you Eric Goodman. Hey, Eric, we are really stoked to have you on our new podcast. And so first of all, thank you. We wanted to start off, I guess, by saying that, you and I have known each other for probably close to 10 years now. I was trying to do the math, and we've talked for like hours and hours about every topic imaginable. And the way we met was kind of weird. Do you kind of remember the circumstances?
I think I do. Let me see, and tell me if I'm totally wrong.
Yeah.
By the way, I'm stoked you guys are doing this. I really love you and Chelsea and the kids and just what you guys are up to. And so thank you for including me, and thank you for being a really talented, gifted artist that I remember looking at your work on Twitter.
Twitter,
and
yeah.
I think it was Twitter, and I just liked it, and I think I might have probably kept like retweeting it. Like you'd put a painting out or something, I'd be like, "Ooh, check this out." This
might have been MySpace.
Yeah.
Might have. No, I don't think it was MySpace. I don't think it was that long ago.
Okay.
I don't think it was that long. I think it was. I'm pretty sure it was Twitter.
Okay.
It wasn't Friendster either. I think it was the original Prodigy program.
Yes. Prodigy. Oh my God.
Yeah. No, I just remember admiring your work, your literal artwork. Seeing a few of your paintings and just being like, "Whoa, this guy gets it. This guy gets it. He sees the spirals. He sees the twists and turns. He sees the capacity that's in the water, like he's the volume and the flow and the movement, and like you see things that I could never see or put on paper ever." So I loved it, and I think I might have reached out to you. Maybe you reached out to me. I don't remember, but I probably reached out.
Chelsea and I were like talking about this, like how it actually happened, and we Chelsea remembered better than me. She said what happened was I think you put an order on my website for a piece of art, and like the address was like mismatched or something, and it came up with a problem, and she like reached out to you, and then
I actually was in charge at that time when Jay's stuff was a little bit smaller than it is now, and I was in charge of quality control, but on the other end, making sure that we weren't shipping packages to people that didn't exist or fraudulent addresses. And so I think you were living in one place, but shipping art maybe home or somewhere else. And so I had to call you to sort out, to make sure you were a human being. And then I Googled.
That sounds like me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Knowing you now, it does sound like you.
Yeah.
And I think we, after the chit-chatting back and forth happened, at one point Chelsea like forwarded me the email, and she's like, "You should check this guy out." And then we like looked at what you were doing, and it was like, straight up our alley, because at the time Chelsea was like super into yoga, and obviously I was surfing a ton, and it just seemed like so aligned. And then we kind of dug a little bit deeper, and I saw you had these great like video tutorials, and then I saw, not to name drop too early, but I'm like, who is this guy that's like working with like Kelly Slater and Dean Potter and Jeff Bridges and Lance Armstrong and Matthew McConaughey? I'm like, this dude's like ordering art for me. I want to like know more about what's happening here. So yeah, I guess there's just a little bit of divine intervention in that.
The surf community has always been really nice to me from day one, even though like I wish I'd been surfing my whole life. I've been surfing like 12, 13 years now, but the surf community at large, from the individual athletes to the doctors to the, what was the ASP and now is the World Surf League. Those guys have been good to me, man. They've just been cool. They've let me, inadvertently ride on their reputation as cool human beings just because I've helped their backs. I've helped their hips. I've gotten back in the water. Mm-hmm. And some of those guys, like, dude, I haven't seen Kelly Slater in 2.5, 3 years, 4 years. I haven't seen him in a long time, but all of his friends do foundation training, which I love.
Yeah, that's
he still
amazing.
speaks, like, the guys speak highly of it. I don't know how it all worked out. I know how it worked out. I know how often I was working and how many people I tried to share this theory on movement with that has now grown into something real.
Yeah. Well, let me cut you off before we jump into
Okay.
that stuff, because before we dive in, because people's stories is what, I mean, you've talked to Jay and I enough to know that that's what we're fascinated with. But what I really want to know is, you do have all these contacts, you have all these amazing things going on now, but what is foundation training exactly, and where did this come from, and what type of people should be looking into this method? Like, I think a really good background for our audience, and then we'll kind of go from there.
Okay, I'll do my best.
Okay.
So foundation training, first and foremost, what you got to know about it is that it came from my spine. I'm now 37 years old. I'll be 38 at the end of this year. And when I was 27, turning 28, I was about to graduate chiropractic school. I had a very bad back that I actually went and got my degree to try to understand, my own pain and how to fix people and how to the body's so interesting, guys. It's so interesting. It's endless. So I went and I explored back pain and knee pain and these things that I was personally having as a young man after weightlifting and years of ice hockey, years of water polo, which I played in high school and college, and just being an athletic guy. My back was so screwed up by the end of chiropractic school. It was like the exact thing you don't want to happen at the end of chiropractic school. You want to be able to go and start your career helping people get through life, because when your back goes, and I mean real back pain, not a little bit of ache and pain. I mean, debilitating on the floor, can't move. Life is looking very dim and sad, actually, and relatively scary.
And that was all sports cause? Like, what do you now think was going on now that you know so much more?
If you would have, so you talk about changing perceptions, and let me say, because it's going to sound weird if I say it right now, but let me segue into that question.
Okay.
And I'll get there at the end of this, and if I don't, remind me.
Okay.
But what foundation training started as was my frustrated, stubborn, creative reaction to chronic pain in my spine. I was told I needed fusion surgery at 2 levels of my spine, L4, L5, L5S1, when I was 27 years old, and I didn't get it, and I got so mad at my profession, at all of it. I didn't get my license to be a chiropractor until 5 years later in 2013, when I was like 33 years old. Yeah, I just was angry, didn't want to be a chiropractor, but I kept my back feeling better and better and better, using these movements that I started doing, these hip hinging gone, obsessive compulsive movements, these breath patterns gone, obsessive compulsive, what I call a re-education of the axial skeleton, the center of the body, the spine, the rib cage, the skull, where it all sits, where it all stays. And the basis of foundation training is this expansive strengthening of the center of your body. All the muscles that connect to your pelvis, all the muscles that connect to your rib cage, all the muscles that connect to your head. They learn to cooperate. They learn to work with the posterior chain muscles. They literally stand you up well. They move you well. They have extraordinary durability. And the more we sit, the more we look at technology, the more we drive cars, the more we kind of lackadaisically rest into our body and stop paying attention, we sort of adapt out of these strong positions, out of these muscles' natural role, into compensation patterns that get very painful. And foundation training is my best possible remedy for those patterns that become painful. How to change them, how to strengthen the muscles in a very connected way, how to make the posterior chain support you from the back of the heels to the back of the skull, and how to really teach the body to be human, a powerful, strong human. It's all body weight. It's all barefoot. And you asked the question of, I think you kind of said, like, where did it come from? Where did that pain and all that come from? Or was it from sports? And I think it was initially. I think that if I had to look at the physical mechanism that hurt my spine, it was repetitive stress on the lower spine, too much hip flexion that turned into spinal flexion. My hips didn't move well enough. My spine had to compensate. And 5 years, 10 years later, there was major degeneration, major herniations, and instability at the base of the spine. That's what I would have told you up until about 4 or 5 years ago, when I started investigating a lot more of the emotional components of the vagus nerve and the phrenic nerve and the digestive capacities of sensitive people and the dopamine amount and the dopamine levels in sensitive people. And by sensitive, you can read that as sensitive or smart or dumb or intellectual or intuitive, like somebody that's just noticing what the hell's going on inside them.
Yeah.
You know, that's sensitive, whatever it is. I'm a very sensitive person, and I have been since I was the youngest child I can remember being. And if I ate the wrong food, I got really depressed and really anxious and really sad and really scared, which is so funny because that's how I felt. It was like literally the exact same feelings I had when my back started going bad, was sensitive, sad, scared, anxious, concerned. And I really believe that my thought pattern since I was a very young child is relatively depressive inadvertently, which is funny because I'm not a depressed guy. I'm a very happy guy because I've learned so many ways to not be depressed in my life. So I go surfing and I exercise and I eat as well as I possibly can. And I exercise very specifically with things like foundation training, kettlebells, and intervals with my friend Peter Park, doing like spinning intervals or breathing intervals, whatever it is. And my friend Jesse Salas and my brother-in-law Jesse Salas, who's become the chief of operations for foundation training now. These are all people that have helped me understand that not only is pain a physical thing, and not only is the reaction to pain a physical thing, but my God, is there a mental component and a nutritional component? And that's not my theory is foundation training, a very specific biomechanical theory that includes decompression breathing and pelvic anchoring. What I'm learning and becoming a true student of in my life is mental health and nutrition and neurotransmission and neuroplasticity and cannabinoids and opioids and all sorts of endogenous, like inside of us, compounds that are made with no other outside anything. They're in us, and we can harness them through these different means. And it's the most interesting study I've ever studied. I love it. It's probably going to be in some way, shape, or form added to the future of foundation training as I learn more and more. But right now, foundation training is a remedy to both the physical and mental stressors of chronic pain.
Wow. So I have a question based on that. I jotted down this earlier to ask you later on, but it's kind of leading us into this earlier. So I was going to ask you, which you kind of dabbled in a little bit, the role of mind over matter and all this. Before I even met you, I read a book by Dr. Sarno, which I had heard, I think Howard Stern was talking about because of his back pain. And a lot of the book, a lot of its premise is about how the mind has great control over the physical mechanisms of the body, specifically the spine. And then over the past 6 months, let's say, I got into the work of Dr. Joe Dispenza, who, like yourself, is a chiropractor and had a back injury, was presented with possible surgery and was able to avoid it through mindfulness practices mostly, but also the understanding of the neuroreceptors and all the different mechanics of the body. And then I guess related to that kind of ties in some of the other people that I've been looking into, like Wim Hof. So there's all these different crossing over philosophies and modalities of mind and body and physical training mixed in with some of the chemical possible triggers for fixing some of these issues. I know like Michael Pollan was one of the guys I've recently read about talking about psychedelics as possibly helping with some of mental health's challenges. So I guess what's your take on all of those different modalities layered on top of each other?
Sounds great. Let's do it. Sounds like a party.
Is that part of foundation training formally, or will it be?
No, it won't be.
Okay.
And I'll tell you why. And I believe in all of that, but I have absolutely zero expertise in any of that.
Yeah.
Zero. I have a very legitimate expertise in biomechanics, something I would not have claimed until a couple of years ago, after teaching many, 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 many thousands of people how to get better, and many, 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 many thousands of them getting better. I can help people, not always, but often.
Yeah.
And that recipe is foundation training, or what I've learned since foundation training, which is the future of it. Like my level 2 courses are very, very advanced compared to my level 1 courses. And it helps practitioners learn how to treat the body with this work instead of just addressing it, kind of more common chronic pains. But my thought on mental health with, psilocybin and cannabis and Joe Dispenza's work. And I was introduced to Joe Dispenza not as a chiropractor. One of my most talented instructors, Chad Everett Allen, who taught 25 or 30 certification courses with me until I decided to build a entirely doctor-based team. But Chad is a brilliant, brilliant guy who helped me understand the value in mental health physical pain through mental health and mental well-being. And he introduced one of Joe Dispenza's meditations into every one of the courses that he taught with me. And he had this 45-minute or so workout that was Joe Dispenza's meditation on space. I wish I knew the exact name of it, but it's all about creating space, feeling space, understanding your nose, your face, your feet, the space between your arches and the ground, all this stuff. It's wonderful. So Chad Allen introduced me to that, and I think it's brilliant. And Joe Dispenza is starting to get some real notoriety because he deserves it.
That's cool.
Because the reality of mind over matter is reality. We're dumb little monkeys, man. We don't understand how we work. We can't figure us out. Whatever created us, be it the gazillion years of evolution or the 2,000 years since Jesus, whatever happened, whatever that was, or what I know nothing about biblical stuff, but whatever led us to who we are today, guys, we're not supposed to understand it completely. You're not supposed to understand every bit of the mechanism that you are. And what Joe Dispenza beautifully articulates is we don't know everything. There is absolute correlation to positive thinking and health. There's absolute correlation to the placebo effect and getting better. Any doctor that needs to be the reason you got better has to talk to themselves a little bit. They got to have an internal conversation.
Yeah, sure.
Well, you do realize there's so much crossover in that with childbirth too, which I'm sure you guys just learned with Jen. I feel like there's just that mind over matter thing is going to come in any type of physical exertion, pain, attunement. That's always going to be a big part of it. But you're right. That could be a black hole you go into forever.
Yeah. But it's the truth. And pregnancy is the greatest expression of pain in the human body, as I can understand it. And pregnancy is not pregnancy, but labor. Labor is the reason that opioid chemistry exists. It's the reason that real heavy pain relief like fentanyl should exist. That stuff shouldn't exist because somebody broke their leg, or because they have migraine headaches, or because they have a toothache, or because they tore their ACL. That is not what those painkillers are for. It is for the human body passing through the craziest experience it can pass through.
Yeah.
But mind over matter is huge because let me just finish this one little bit. I talk about fentanyl. I talk about those things because you have something in your body called enkaphalin. ENKAPH Fulin. I don't know how you spell it. It ends LIN. Yeah. But enkaphalin is an endogenous opioid. Endogenous means your body creates it itself, produces it itself. With the right fatty acids, the right building blocks, it will produce this neurotransmitter. Enkaphalin, which is capable of going into your cells and telling your nerves, hey man, don't feel pain. You're okay. You have that. And it is absolutely stimulated through thought, through process, and through necessity. I guess what I'm saying is I agree with what Joe Dispenza says. I don't agree with the ease of it, though. I think that getting control over your mental capacity or boundary, or what you believe is your capacity or boundary, is one of the hardest things, one of the other hardest things that a human being can go through, whether through exercise or relationships or whatever. Boundary breaking is how mental fortitude works. It's how Joe Dispenza's work works. It's not just think this mantra. It's embody it. Make those changes. Go through hell. Do it. It's the most interesting thing. It's the same reason that psilocybin is interesting. It opens up pathways. It opens up vasculature. It allows blood to move into areas of the brain that it typically wouldn't move into. They've also shown the same thing with meditation. It's just the brain is so cool. The body's so cool. We don't know anything other than we can come up with a lot of stuff and we can understand some stuff, but what we understand continuously changes and we keep proving ourselves wrong. So maybe we should focus more on just really trying to feel well and behave well than trying to figure everything out.
Yeah, well,
it's like so easier said than done, though, isn't it? Like, I feel like one school of thought towards this could be like, well, we'll never figure it out anyway, so why bother? Just live life through ignorant bliss, and there's nothing necessarily wrong with that. But like, me as an artist, I find myself constantly obsessed with trying to solve the puzzles and expanding, understanding of everything. And I think maybe it's a curse, maybe it's a blessing. I'm not really sure some days.
Both.
Yeah. Well, so going back to that early story with you, Eric, I feel like we want to know more about, I feel like sometimes you come out on the other side with these things like foundation training or, anyone who develops these amazing systems for us. And there's this whole strategic planning that goes into the big picture. But what happened with you? Like, how did you jump from a guy in his dorm room or at his apartment in college to this? Like, how did that happen?
So my first, some of it. And Jay, we've talked about this.
Yeah, man.
In my 37 years, I've taken psilocybin mushrooms, probably about 37 times. Like, I mean, I've played. I'm not crazy. Maybe a couple times a year. Maybe for a little while between college and grad school and post grad school. Maybe 5 times a year.
All right.
With friends, hiking, exploring, trying to understand. But that's not where my pain relief stuff came from.
Okay.
My pain relief stuff came from pure frustration. I went to and I like yoga a lot. I did yoga in college, so I was relatively familiar with like down dog and things like that. But it used to kill me when I was in pain. And my last episode of what I would consider uncontrollable pain was in 2007 when I lived in Huntington Beach, and I was in my 3rd of 4 years in chiropractic school. And for me, it was 4 years because I transferred schools halfway through from St. Louis to California to LA. And I was finishing up my 3rd year at LA. And my back just went out. I was driving down to San Diego. I was visiting a buddy that happened to live in California as well. We were both, from Florida and living in California. We went to college together. And I was driving down there and my back went while I was driving.
And what does that look like for you? Okay. Yeah.
That looks like have you ever heard of something called antalgic position?
No.
Okay. Antalgic literally translates to anti-algia, which is no pain, anti-pain. What antalgic positioning is like a hip hike. Like if you look at somebody with their shirt off when they're in an acute spasm, you're going to see one hip held really high and one hip held low, like their stomach is asymmetrical.
Oh.
Or the belly button is being pulled to one side or the other. When I stood up out of the car, it was my first legitimate antalgic position that I'd ever felt. And then I'd learned about these things in chiropractic school, but I had never felt it to that degree. I'd had my back go out since I was like 19, but never out where I couldn't stand up completely. Like I couldn't stand. I couldn't straighten my knees. I couldn't straighten my legs. I couldn't straighten my spine. That was 11 years ago, I guess, April 2007, because I graduated a year later in 2008. And I went back. I kind of went to dinner or whatever, maybe lunch, whatever I was doing in San Diego, in North San Diego in Carlsbad. And I came back to Huntington Beach that night. And I was screwed. And I woke up in the morning. I took a bunch of ibuprofen. I woke up in the morning, same pain. Oh shit, stood up. Okay, what am I going to do about this? I went to a yoga class because I've gone to yoga for years. The yoga made it a little bit worse, not because of yoga, but because of how I was doing it at the time. I went to the doctor. The doctor, he was the brother of one of my classmates was this guy, Jack Hewitt, who's now a chiropractor, and his brother, I can't remember his first name, was a doc down in Orange County, and he sent me to an MD, and the MD who had a DO in the practice. So I had 3 different doctors, which is pretty interesting. The chiropractor's like, dude, you're probably going to need surgery. The MD's like, you're probably going to need surgery. And the DO's like, I would try as much physical work as I can, but this looks like a surgical fusion when they looked at my MRIs and my X-ray. And my MRIs are in the public domain now. You can see my MRI. You can see my low spine. It sucks. But it's been quite a lesson. I went back to a yoga class because pain relievers were not working. They were saying you need stability, we're going to do it surgically.
Yeah.
I have never said no so quickly in my life to anything. Absolutely not.
So
wait.
Like, what was your, obviously I know back surgery is not ever ideal.
Let me
It's
explain.
not the first choice, but why say no when they're telling you that will cure it?
Because I know people with back surgeries that have failed. And if you have a back surgery fail in your 20s, you are not going to have a very comfortable life. They hadn't cut my skin open, ripped through my fascia, gone through my muscles, gone through my ligaments, made sure that they didn't hit any nerves. They didn't go through the major degenerated tissue with knives and scalpels and tools to investigate what was going further. Because once they did, my life would have been different forever.
Yeah.
And I knew that. I knew that at a cellular level, because I had helped people avoid surgery as an intern in chiropractic school. And I'd read all these stories about people not needing the fusions they got and the fusions they got going bad. So it was literally a no-brainer. It was, you haven't even tried, Eric. You haven't even tried, man. You went to a couple of yoga classes. You've gone to your rehab therapist at your chiropractic school, but they don't really know much. They're doing old shit, man. They're doing old passive extension exercises. They're doing these quadruped exercises that compartmentalize one leg against the rest of the body. It's just not right.
Yeah.
You haven't done it right. Damn it. Do it right. This is literally the discussion I had in my head.
And how old are you here?
I was 27.
Okay.
I was 27 and extraordinarily well educated in anatomy, particularly.
And it's the right age to be just cocky enough to be like, I can do this on my own.
Right.
If there's just cocky enough, I was 6 or 7 steps ahead of that at that age.
Okay.
I'm not, man. I was the team. The next step for me after that was to become the team chiropractor for the U.S. Olympic water polo team.
Oh my God.
And to introduce 25 Olympians to these exercises that I was starting to do for myself. And those exercises were based in extending the spine as aggressively as I could at that time. And I don't teach them the same way anymore. I've learned a lot along the way. I've really not perfected, but I've made them more ideal for injuries over the years. And I've got 25, 30 exercises easily now that are very safe and very powerful and all body weight and very difficult. But the first couple were at Yoga Works in Huntington Beach on Main Street. And they put me in a chair pose, and the fucking chair pose hurt. So I started extending my back as hard as I could in the chair pose, and it felt better. It felt better. I was like, oh my God, my back doesn't hurt right now. Whoa. Wait a second. What did I just do?
Yeah.
What just happened? And I might or may not have been stoned.
Yeah.
I probably was, and I probably was really tuned into what I was doing because I lived in Orange County, California, and I was in chiropractic school, and I was in my late 20s, and I'm pretty sure that's what you're supposed to do.
Mm-hmm.
So I was tuned in, and I believe in tuning in. I believe in becoming really in tune with what your body's doing, more so than anything else, in fact. I think it helps us get through life really well. And I started going to that yoga class and extending my spine for a week. I went maybe 3-4 days that week, and I started to notice that my back was less painful. It didn't go away.
So not during yoga, but in between, you were starting to notice less pain.
I was noticing during yoga.
Okay.
And not during yoga. I literally sat half the class out. It was me and 1 or 2 other people. It was a very small class, and it was a very understanding teacher. It was an older woman. I remember a very kind human being just being like, do what you can do. Do what you can do. And you got to remember, I was about a 225-pound, 6'2" man at that time.
Yeah.
Just finished playing water polo and working out like a maniac, for pretty much 10 years, 12 years. So I looked like I could do it all, and I felt like I couldn't do anything. And that yoga class changed my life forever. And that instructor that didn't push me, that simply said, hey, do what you can do, changed my life forever and set the tone of how I was going to teach everybody into the future. And the best description I can give you of that day and that week in 2007, my refusal to get surgery, my absolute arrogance and cockiness coming through and yielding creativity, thank God, and not going the other disastrous way that it could. And that lasted me 10 years into today, 11 years into today. That same creativity and curiosity has grown 100-fold, and I've been humbled extensively over the years.
Yeah.
So the arrogance has actually subsided in a really healthy way, I believe. And I'm learning to talk about myself as a patient and not as a creator and not as anything else, because the only reason anybody should listen to me about foundation training is because I was the first patient, and I'm still my own patient every day. I still train this stuff every day. I still teach it every day. And it's gotten good. I haven't gotten surgery.
What happened? So what exactly happened on a mechanical level, looking back, and how long did it take for you to notice, okay, here I am in this position, I'm all cockeyed, I can't stand up straight, and then you start doing these movements that you invented, basically. How long did it take for you to be like, this really worked? Like, I'm good?
In 2008, 2007 and 2008, I was working with the water polo guys. So I got to play a lot and I got to train a lot. And I was doing my exercises then. And my exercises then were like 3 or 4 exercises. I had what I called a modified sun salutation, which was an extension-based sun salutation that never took you into forward flexion. Then my first discussion on mechanics with you guys will be forward flexion. For most individuals that are not very young or have not been stretching their whole lives, there is a tug of war that happens when their hips try to fold, their hamstrings get tight, and their back gets tight. The hamstrings are very powerful, very long muscles, so they typically win and stay tight as the back, particularly the lower back, flexes to make room. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
When that flexion occurs, it is going against the natural curvature of the lower back. The natural curvature of the lower back is neutral towards extension in a lordotic curve. If you look up lordosis, Lordosis, you're going to see the neck and the lower back have very similar curves. Neither of them likes to go forward very far. Both of them, in modern technology times, go forward further than they should. And there's flexion at the top and there's flexion at the bottom. That little bit of flexion changes the force dispersion of your body substantially. And it makes pinpoint focal point pressure of your body's mass against gravity. That force, that mass, that weight is absorbed at the lower spine and at the hip joints, not in a healthy way, in a straight, impactful, linear way. What I teach people is how to strengthen the spine against the hamstrings, against the glutes, against the groin muscles, against all of the muscles that directly attach to the pelvis, because the pelvis is where sort of the platform of the body, it's the platform, it's the center of us, it's our center of gravity. If we can strengthen the muscles around the pelvis, we're going to inadvertently strengthen the spine, no matter what. You can't strengthen the pelvis without strengthening the spine. All of my movements, the founder, the woodpecker, the standing decompression, the anchored extensions, the anchored bridges, the windmills, the different rotations, the kneeling decompressions, all of these things, even seated decompression, teaches all of those muscles that connect to the pelvis to fight against the spine, so that the spine has to fight against them and perpetually get stronger. It's sort of our built-in pulley system. And we have this really wonderful mechanism to perpetuate its strength and its elasticity and its flexibility. And that's called hip hinging well. And I teach hip hinging very, very well. And I had to teach it to myself for like probably 7 years before I trusted it. Like before I really believed that my body was out of the woods was probably when I was like 32, 33. Once I finally got my chiropractic license, it was because I finally felt I could help people.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I wanted to ask is, so talk to me about that jump of you're in incredible pain and then you're seeing a career for yourself that you had planned as a chiropractor, but now you're actually working through this methodology and now working with the Olympic team. And like, how does that happen when you have this other plan? Like, we like these shifts in people's stories, and I like to know where your head was.
In the face.
Okay, well, there you go.
My plan looked at me and was like, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Just not going to happen, buddy.
Got it.
Better luck next time. My plan was to open up a sports medicine practice, and I was, from 2005, 6, and 7, I was lucky enough to go to the Pan American Games and the Central American Games as a treating intern, thanks to the kindness and intuition of a really good gentleman named Dr. Tom Hyde, who's one of my mentors along the line here. And Tom introduced me to some really wonderful people and some really wonderful opportunities, including the head coach of the U.S. Olympic team, Dr. Terry Schroeder. Now, I wasn't teaching those guys foundation training like I teach today? And I think, Chelsea, I want to make sure I answer this correctly. Yeah. You're ask me exactly, let me stay pinpoint here. Do you mind asking just a little more clear on that question?
What I was saying is we often find with entrepreneurs, there's that similar thing of, I was planning to go to chiropractic school, but then all of a sudden this wrench in the works or divine intervention or, just something happened that made my entire path change. And for you, obviously, you were planning to be a chiropractor, decided not to get licensed, and then we're working with these series of movements. But how does that turn into I'm helping the Olympic team and I'm doing, how does that happen?
So I didn't decide not to get licensed, by the way.
Oh, okay.
I failed my licensing exam the first 2 times I took it.
I love that because, by the way, Jay couldn't get into art school, for the record.
Yeah, right. That art school is like, missed that one.
Just not good enough, buddy. Sorry.
Sorry, Jay. Sorry, Jay. You should be an accountant.
Yeah. I should.
Yeah, jeez. So, okay, now, sorry, I got off track there. No. The reason I got off track is I was talking about how I got into sports medicine, which was my original plan. I was going to open up a clinic. I was going to see athletes. I was going to, I was certified in Graston technique and active release technique and all these things that you kind of needed at that time in the early 2000s to be a good doctor. And I was ready, man. And then I took my boards and I studied for months, but I'm dumb. So I failed. And that was that. And I failed. If you could imagine traveling with a bunch of stud Olympians, I mean, ridiculous. Like you're feeling like you're on top of the world because you're traveling with this team. And you took your boards about halfway. I took my boards halfway through the year I was working with them. They all knew me well. I knew them well. And we were in France it was either late June or early July of 2008. And this was only about a month and a half before the Beijing Olympics that I trained these guys for, that I was planning to go to. And we were in a hotel in France because we were laid over during an Air France strike that was we were planning to get from Hungary to France, and then we were supposed to connect from France to home. And we got laid over for 2 days. They put us up in a hotel, the whole team, because there was a strike at Air France. And my board scores came out during that time. So me and this guy, Peter Varelis, who's one of the friendlier guys that I became friends with on the team, were sitting in front of a computer, and I checked my board scores, and I failed.
Dope.
Oh, shit. I'm in France with a bunch of Olympians that are trying to strive for a gold. They were the number 9 team in the world when I met them. A month later, they went on to get their silver medal, actually, which I have hanging in my parents' house. I got a silver medal from the Beijing Olympics, thanks to those guys. Thanks to Terry Schroeder, really, for giving me one.
Wow.
But I had to tell Terry a month and a half before the Olympics that I was not able to get my license, and that I knew that I could not go to the Olympics because you cannot go to the Olympics as a physician without a license. So the guys luckily held it up. They did it. They killed it. They literally became an amazing surprise story at the Olympic Games, and they won a silver medal. They beat the world powers, and they won their first medal in 20 years and haven't won anything since.
Wow.
And at the same time, I felt like, okay, I'm done. I don't know what to do. I'm $200,000 in debt. My back is killing me. I can't go to the Olympics with these guys. I'm going to Colorado, where my parents have a place, where my family is. I'm going there, and I'm just going there.
Yeah.
And I went there, and I got my shit together for a week or two and met a couple good doctors out there. And I had this growing theory at this point that if you strengthen the hamstrings and the adductors and the glutes appropriately, instead of to lift the leg, to keep the leg planted on the ground and to propel the torso from a hinge to a standing position. That's what they're really for. That's what the posterior chain really does, is it leverages the torso upright. Okay, I'm going to dive into this. And I started going to a couple chiropractors. Dr. David Boynton in North Boulder, Colorado, was the first one that really gave me the time of day. He and I went to lunch, and I was like, hey man, can I just show you some exercises that I came up with? I'm a chiropractor too. I just moved here from California after finishing school, and I'm kind of just trying to find my way. I've always been very upfront and vulnerable with where I am in the world and who I am in the world. And he and I got along well, and he actually let me come in. Talk about humility, man. He let me come into his clinic and treat his patients with him.
Wow.
Not, oh, I'm going to show you how to treat patients. No. He gave me 2 stroke victims. He gave me an Ironman triathlete that was like top 20. And I got to explore on these people with him.
Yeah.
And I got to use my work with them for the 3 months that I lived in Colorado. And man, I've actually never thought of it that way as I'm thinking about that right now, because now I'm confident, man. I'm so stoked. Like, my work is everywhere, and it's getting people better, and I understand it now better anyways. And this guy, before any of that, just like was like, yeah, you got something, man. I'm going to help you out. And he did. And he like helped me make a living for a little while when I couldn't. He let me work under his license. He had no reason to. None. Zero.
Well, he had a reason. He obviously saw that you were on to something.
Yeah.
I mean, there was something in there, you know?
Yeah.
Well, so were the movements changing through this period? Like, were you developing this at this point? Or was they staying like the same that they started when you were leaving yoga that day? You know, like, were they developing?
When I left yoga, I had nothing.
Okay.
I had the idea that extension. It took me from leaving yoga to where I am now in Boulder was about 2 years, year and a half. And that year and a half gave me about 500 plus days to work on these exercises. And I took every single one of them. I literally explored everything I could do with my body at that time, 500, a year and a half, but now steadily every day for 11 years. I don't go a day without trying to like pull myself together, I guess you could say, or pull myself apart, however you want to look at it.
I just can't not ask you this question since I'm an artist. So when I'm painting, my purest moments of painting and creativity kind of feel like I'm not really doing it, like being in that flow state where I'm the guy holding the brush, but someone else is actually doing it. And I have experienced that when I was surfing, when I was with, when I'm with my children or with Chelsea doing something great, or when I'm rock climbing. That flow state obviously has been talked about a lot, been written about. I would love to know how you use creativity in that flow state, because you talked earlier about being tuned in when you were baked in yoga, and creativity obviously has a huge part in what you're doing, not only the invention of these maneuvers and these positions, but also all of them have these great names, and every part of your business has creativity flowing through it to the point where you almost overlook it, like it's such an obvious thing, like, oh yeah, the founder movement, no big deal. And like, you have creativity flowing.
That movement's a big deal.
It is a big deal.
That movement's a big deal.
But it's like, you have creativity mixed in your business, in the maneuvers, and then overlapped and working super complementary with all that is the knowledge, the fluency of your knowledge, the business knowledge, the biomechanical knowledge, the anatomical experience and expertise. Like, can you talk to my fellow creative people in all different mediums how you find a balance to dance between the creative, intuitive, and the more logical sides of things?
I'll try.
Okay. Go take a hit.
Yeah, seriously. I might have to. No, let me think for just a second. So number one, when I'm teaching, I have one or two ways to teach. If I try to do my movements while I'm teaching, I fail. And I don't have the flow that I want to have. If I watch one person's body and I make them do what I need them to do, or help them do what I need them to do, or what they need to do to get better, I can flow through anatomy and physiology as if I'm going through my own body with an anatomy diagram. I can feel what their body is trying to do because I've done it so many times myself. So many, multiple thousands and thousands of times I've gone through these poses in my life. So sometimes flow is just knowledge, just a simple, comprehensive understanding of what you're teaching or what you're talking about. And then there's times where flow feels like I'm like almost like channeling somebody, like there's something going through me that ain't me.
Mm-hmm.
And it knows a lot about back pain, more than it should and more than they should. And those are my most creative moments. Those are not out of body in any way, shape, or form. I'm completely there. I know what I'm saying. I know why I'm saying it, but I don't know where it's coming from.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's intuition too. Like, I think you've just built up years and years and years of that intuition. So now you're able to carry it through to something that has so much more meaning. I feel like it's hard for us sometimes to translate. Like with Jay, it's easy because he creates a painting. But I know for me as a doula, I'm the same way. Like I can watch someone moving in certain ways and be like, oh, I know what's going on. Whereas that's just from being witness to these people. And for you, it's that pain. Like you see where it's coming through and it's almost like you can feel it in your own body.
That's very accurate. It's very accurate. And what I, to answer your question, Jay, on the how it all comes together with the names and the business and all of that, dude, I work with my best friends. I work with guys that I've known my whole life, or at least my whole, aware life since I was a young teenager. Mm-hmm. And they're really creative. We're really creative people. We all want to be artists, but we don't have the skill to put ink on canvas. Or like my dad and my mom are sculptors. My sister's a sculptor. That's not where I get my love. I get my love from helping people understand themselves physically, helping them see that they can shift their like my artwork is helping people shift their locus of control from outside of them to inside of them. That's my artwork. And my way of delivering that, my painting, is poses. And I've been painting now for 11 years steadily, making these poses, looking at what's gone off, trying to put it back together, trying to teach it. The creativity in the names is literally looking at the poses and deciding what they look like and then putting a little bit of science to it. That's it, man. Just putting some science to it.
Yeah, like the woodpecker. Yeah.
The woodpecker's a great pose. But it's not because it looks like a woodpecker. It's because it's in a triactile position. It's because it's a 2 forward, 1 back type position. There's just a little bit, there's a diactyl, I'm sorry. When you look at kind of the meaning of that, you start to see, it looks like the foot of a bird. If you kind of put that together, the hinge pattern of the torso with the front leg and the back leg, that starts to look like the foot pattern of a bird. 1 behind them, 2 in front of them. It also looks like a little wooden woodpecker that used to, if you think of like the little axle wooden woodpecker that just dips forward and dips in the little bucket, it kind of looks like that with a good hinge. There's not much creativity to the naming of the poses. We called the founder because I called the work foundation, and that was the pose that started my life as far as I'm concerned, was learning how to go from a chair pose to a founder, which couldn't be more different. The leverage is 180 degrees to the other side of the body, entirely on the back, entirely in the arches and the groin. Like, it's just a different pose. And to get there, it needed its own name. The founder needed to be known as like the pose of this work, the central pose. That's why everything else is. I
tried to shift into that during chair pose today, and it's not really very fun. I have to.
I could actually.
No, you literally leverage your whole backside of the body to do it. The whole
thing. Really wild. I could tell why it's like you really have to focus just on that. It's not just a flow into it and flow out of it type of.
No, there's no flow in foundation training. None. Yeah. There's no flow between movements. There's do this movement, come out of it, shake it off, rest, figure out what you just did. Now we'll go into another one slowly, steadily.
I remember I guess it was a few years ago already, probably more than that. We were hanging out at my house and you were teaching me some basic movements, and obviously the founder was one of them, and then you did the other movement where you do like the hang loose shaka things with your hands.
Decompression breathing.
Yeah, so I didn't remember all the names, but all that stuff has kind of stuck over the years. So whenever I'm in yoga or whenever I'm even painting or brushing my teeth, I will subconsciously remember to, elongate my rib cage and turn up my sternum and all the different things that you taught me back then. And whenever I'm in yoga, I'm always the one doing chair pose that's not like everyone else because of the way you taught me. And there's a definitive difference in the feeling of elongating from your rooted feet and your throughout your body. It's such a difference from like a standard yoga pose. And I guess that's a good launching off point to the question that I'm sure you get all the time is like, how is this different from yoga and Pilates? Does it complement it? Should it be a replacement? Like, where does it fit into all this?
No, we don't replace anything.
Okay.
We really don't. There's no replacement. We're an accessory. Foundation training is an accessory tool. No question about it. It's not. Sorry.
All good.
Just dropped my phone. It's an accessory tool. It's not like. So number one, let me go into the parts that are different than Pilates and things like that. The main difference between Pilates and yoga is that we are 100% posterior chain driven. The goal of our exercises, all of them, is to line the body up to make available the tissues of the posterior chain for as much contraction as they can find. That means positioning the hips inward slightly with subtle internal rotation to elongate the glute muscles, to position the adductor muscles accurately, to position the hamstring muscles accurately, so that when they contract to their most effective length, from their most effective length. You're getting the most out of them. Pilates goes the other way. Pilates is all about pulling in. It's a wonderful practice. In fact, Gail Desart, who is my first ever certified instructor and on my teaching team for every cert I've ever taught, continues to be on my teaching team, is also somebody that over the past, say, 20 years has certified countless people in BASI, B-A-S-I, Pilates. So we have people that have kind of been at the top of Pilates that have helped me really see the difference between their work and ours. The difference is our work is posterior chain dominant. Our work is based in the chassis of the body. When I say chassis, I mean from the pelvis down. That's a term I learned from Pat McNamara, who is just a genuine badass in the special forces world and has something called combat strength training. He talks about the chassis being from the hips down. Basically, the legs are the control center of your body, the frame. Foundation training builds the frame. It strengthens the frame. All of the work is about expansion, meaning we are taking strength and we're developing strength from the inside out. We're not creating resistance from the outside in. We're not doing pull-ups. We're not pulling from the outside of our body to the center of our body. We're pushing and pulling from the center of our body outwards, creating a rib cage that learns how to move properly again, creating a spine that learns how to combat against tight hamstrings, against tight glutes, learns to protect the torso, learns to protect the abdomen by staying strong. Yoga is breathing, flexibility, flow, energy, relaxation, and intensity. It's exercise, but it's also mental health. Foundation training is one pose at a time to strengthen the axial skeleton, to strengthen the pelvis, to teach the arch muscles to communicate with the groin muscles, to teach the head to find center over the shoulders. When you add something like foundation training, 10, 15 minutes at a time, your yoga practice, your Pilates practice, your CrossFit practice, your breath practice, whatever practice you typically have is only going to get better. You're going to have more available biomechanics, more available muscle contraction, more available lung tissue for oxygenation. And that's the basis of our work, is to make your body available for what you need it to do, or what you like it to do.
So obviously there is, we could easily say everyone should be doing this, but as far, you obviously are well known for helping back pain. So who are the people that it's like, you need to do this? Like, what's the focus here when you're trying to introduce people to this practice?
If you have chronic pain, or if you have performance goals that you're not meeting, or if you'd like to get into training and you're not really sure where to start, those are the people that should go to foundation training.
Okay.
If you're a top-level athlete looking for an advantage, history would indicate that you should do foundation training. We have a lot of championships. We have a lot of golds. We have a lot of silvers. If you're a person who teaches movement, or if you're a doctor that treats patients for chronic pain, you should learn foundation training. If you have, if you're looking for something that's going to relax you and chill you out and make you zen,
hit the bomb.
I knew he was.
Yeah, it's not. That's not what we are. Like, we're not. That's not us. We're strong. We're very intense. I'm a very intense human being. My teaching team is very intense human beings. We want you to get this right. We want you to feel better because it helps us grow as individuals and as a company when you feel better, whoever you are. Mm-hmm. So it's not about flow in this work, man. It's not about feeling good. It's about feeling great. It's about feeling vibrant and powerful and confident in your body so you can go do the things you want to do.
So when it comes to practitioners, is this the type of thing where like they have to do it in the sequence you're giving them? Or is this something where certain movements are going to help certain people?
Yeah.
And okay.
I teach you how to do foundation training or we teach you how to do foundation training and then you decide how to use it.
Okay, cool.
I have a streaming website that is a large catalog of all of the movements we've ever done, all of the workouts we've ever done. There's a lot of hours on there.
I have a question that I was going to ask you, but it's exactly along these lines. So you are extremely generous and giving with your tools and your movements. You have a huge amount of resources online. You also have, is it 2 books? I know you have 2 books. Is there
two books?
2 books. So you have
2
books.
I'm working on 2 others, but I currently have 2 out.
So you have all of these free resources. You have 2 books. You're doing teacher trainings. So for people that have not yet heard of you, that are going to be Googling you later or looking on foundationtraining.com, and they find these great free resources, can you give us an idea of what they could expect when they take the next level of doing your online courses or your teacher trainings or your certification or classes? What else might there be besides the free stuff so people can know to expect that there is more?
Okay. I mean, honestly, it's look, you can learn a language from going to Rosetta Stone, or you can learn a language by going to the country and learning and becoming immersed in the culture. And if you learn our free stuff on YouTube, look, just read the comments. Probably going to get better.
Yeah.
You might not, and you're not going to have much instruction. You're going to have the minimal experience of foundation training by learning our free stuff. But we make good videos, and I try to put a lot out there. And I mean, you can watch interviews and things that are 2-3 hours long where you can learn a lot. No bullshit. You can learn a lot.
Yeah.
If you go to our streaming site, you're going to get educated, which is different. You're going to follow. The first thing is either our core, depending on where you start, either our core elements program, which is 6 modules that should take you about 2 to 3 months to finish, or you're going to start with our 60 days to success, where we literally walk you through every single day for 60 days of what to learn. And it's like 10 minutes at a time, sometimes 15 minutes at a time. That's going to give you a trajectory. It's going to take you from point A to point B, C, D. You can go pretty far. You can go to some advanced workouts that are really hard. You can see every exercise that I'll teach you in my level 1 and my level 2 cert. Actually, no, I take that back. I still have 3 or 4 exercises that we have to upload from our level 2, but you see most of them. There's about 30 to 35 exercises on that website right now. Mm-hmm. Whereas on YouTube, there's like 3. There's a couple founders, there's a couple prone decompressions. I think that's, there's a couple lunge stretches, things like that.
Yeah, I can speak from like anecdotal evidence here, just giving you a free plug. So when I went through your online course, it was definitely a lot more involved, and I remember getting access to that right around the time our twins were born, or maybe when they were newborns, and obviously holding 2 babies and a toddler all day. My back was a wreck, and I was doing, the various floor movements and the different standing up movements, like, just throughout the day, not in a super disciplined way because that wasn't available. And there was a noticeable improvement. So it definitely is something that works. And I encourage people to go through the online course versus just the couple-minute videos on YouTube.
I think thanks for that, by the way. There's a lot for any stage. And if you want to learn online. If you want to get a book, if you want to understand my true theory of foundation training, that is in true to form. That shows my idea that if we retrain the axial skeleton towards expansion, we're going to have major improvements in our lives in various ways. And it teaches you all the exercises that are based in anchoring and decompression, the 2 base principles of our work. If you come to a certification course, that's immersion. That's going to the country to learn the language. Mm-hmm. My team is wonderful. I have 2 teams. I have a team that I taught with for the previous 5 years, and I have a team that has been on the periphery, traveling with me, seeing patients with me. And I've actually made the choice to go with that team as my future teaching team because there's just more experience in them. There's more doctors in them. My work is moving towards medicine more than it's moving towards anything else, and I want to be there for it, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
it does.
and it, it only gives you more street cred, as we would say.
Yeah, yeah.
So
you're right.
I don't want to be annoying, but I want to go back to your story just so we can get back to that. Because I want to just know, like, I need to know how you got from Boulder assisting a doctor. Keep going. I need more.
Yeah, like, how does that turn into like a freaking movement? Like, you look online and it's like a cult following. Man. It's insane. I mean, the marketing is spot on. There's so many things.
And we don't. It's so funny that the marketing is spot on because we don't market. Like, we don't. We just,
and that's a sign of a good movement, right?
Yeah.
Like, it just takes off on its own. So, okay, so you're shadowing this doctor, and then what happens?
So I want to change. I wasn't shadowing him. If I was shadowing him, I would have had a really different experience. Right. He was letting me riff. Okay. You know, he was letting me go, and he was like, dude, I can learn from this guy. He's like saying it under his breath. He's like, I'm just gonna kind of listen.
Yeah.
Dave Boynton, that chiropractor, Dr. David Boynton, has come through my course a couple times, and we remain friends. He's a great guy, man. I'm forever indebted to that human being. But that tells you nothing about how I got from there to here. So let's get there.
Yeah.
I moved to Santa Barbara at the end of 2008, November of 2008. I had always wanted to live in Santa Barbara. It was my dream. And I have said to enough people in my life, move where you want to live and then become successful. Don't go the other way around.
Right.
So I did that. Yeah. I went to Santa Barbara with a lot of debt, big hopes and dreams, all kinds of stuff like that, you know. Wanted to be a good doctor. I was still planning on taking my boards again because second time I took my boards was November of 2008, 3 months after I found out that I failed or so, or 4 months, whatever it is. And I went out to Portland, Oregon, flew out there, took my boards at the chiropractic college near Portland, got my results back near Christmas, failed. Shit. God. I'm in Santa Barbara by then. I had made some confidence internally in Boulder by having some real success with those patients that Dave was nice enough to let me work with. In fact, a couple of them wrote me testimonials about how the work changed their lives in that short time, including one of the stroke victims that was able to run again after being told that he would not get stuff back. And this guy was when I met him, he was 37. So he was not old. Now he's 47 and he's still cruising. He's got a limp. He's got some weird movements for sure. He doesn't look ideal, but he can do what he wants to do. And that's a big difference.
Yeah.
His name was Brad. Brad gave me a lot of confidence, and I came out to California with confidence, which was the one thing I didn't have when I came out to Boulder. When I got here, I was ready to make something. I knew that I was going to write a book about what I was doing. It was not a question in my head, so I started writing. I met a guy through a lot of trial and error. I emailed about 20 to 30 people out here from doctors and personal trainers that had gyms in Santa Barbara. And I heard back from one of them. I actually heard back from 3 or 4, but the one that really made an effort was this guy named Peter Park. And his wife, Kelly Park, actually reached out to me first. Said, hey, you've trained a bunch of Olympians. Because I had testimonials from those guys. I sent like this little packet of like 20 testimonials from my patients, Olympic team and triathletes, and then these 2 stroke guys. Or a stroke guy and a stroke girl. And they let me kind of come to their gym. Kelly and Peter owned a place called Platinum Fitness in Summerlin and Montecito in the Santa Barbara area. They let me come into their gym. I kind of chatted with them for a little while. I actually went through a class of Peter's and watched him put a whole group of people through a class. And Peter's a world-class trainer. I didn't realize that at the time. I came to find out. It's always amazing how the most humble ones are the ones that probably shouldn't be the most humble. But he let me come in. He's like, so what'd you think about that class? Because, I mean, everybody's just on the floor sweating there. They're dead. They're dead. He's a badass trainer. I was like, that's kind of cool, but your people kind of move badly. Like, as Peter will put it, I told him that they move like shit, but I don't remember saying that. But it piqued his interest. And I was like, can I, in a confident, arrogant moment, I said, can I train you for a few weeks?
Gosh.
and I didn't know this at the time, but this is the guy who was actively training Lance Armstrong for the previous 10 years.
Wow.
And a number of NBA players and a number of just badass.
Yeah, so he was
badass.
successful. He was
already who he was, doing what he was doing, and he was kind enough to help me at the beginning.
Oh, I hear that.
So I went in there and I showed him that stuff and I trained him for a few weeks. And he listened and he liked it. And we decided we were going to write the book together after that 3 weeks, maybe a month. I started teaching classes at his gym. We actually went out to Austin, Texas. Peter was training Lance Armstrong at the time. And if you look at my first foundation book, Lance wrote the foreword. It was a very small circle of the whole thing. But we went out to Austin, Texas, because I had this idea, and he liked the idea a lot, and he wanted to be involved. And we had no idea what to do with it. And we went out there, and we talked to this guy, Bill Stapleton, who is Lance's agent and lawyer. And Bill, who was just a friend of Peter's, was like, start teaching classes. Figure out how to teach this stuff. Figure out how to teach it. That sounds important. That's your next step. Whether a book happens, whether any of those things happen, figure out how to teach this. So came back to Santa Barbara, and that next day I started a class at Peter's gym, and it was free. And then it was free for about a year. A lot of people started to come after a while. Started teaching people how to leverage their posterior chain a little bit better, how to protect their spine a little bit better against their hamstrings. There wasn't much of a breathing component yet. It was all find the hamstrings, find the glutes, and make them work.
So
find
who
the
was
back
this
extensors.
Class, focused on? Who are you pitching this
Back
class
pain.
to?
Back pain. It was
Okay.
just a new back pain class. Nobody knew who I was. Nobody knew what it was. It was just, I basically utilized Peter's network at that time in Santa Barbara, and I offered a new thing to his network. Okay. So he told people about the class for the first year or so. And my deal was, we're going to write this book together, Peter. It's 50-50. I'm going to teach this class. I'm going to figure out how to do this for real. Like, I'm going to take this next year or two or whatever it's going to take me, and I'm going to figure this thing out. And we're going to figure this thing out. And you're going to give me all these clients to work on, and we're going to do this together. And I basically came in and just started working with Peter from that day forward. Like, I went in there and he was so open to me working with his patients. It blew my mind, or his clients, I mean, and he just let me, and some big ones, including Lance. In fact, Lance really likes the work a lot. The first YouTube video I made was for him, and it's got like 3 million views on it now.
Wow.
It was for him and this guy, Doug Ullman, that he used to work with.
So what was that like when you're like, okay, I'm walking into the room to help Lance Armstrong today?
I don't give a shit.
Really?
I don't.
You really don't. Nothing.
No, I
in
really
there.
don't.
There's like zero part of you that like went back home and you're like, yeah.
I called my parents. I was like, I just taught Lance Armstrong what I'm doing. I wasn't even called Foundation yet.
Mom always cares. That's you have to call back.
And I probably told my girlfriend at the time or something like that, but I didn't feel nerves. I just felt like lucky. Oh, sweet. I get to show Lance Armstrong my exercise. Cool.
Yeah.
I hope he likes it.
I hope he teaches me how to ride a bike.
Yeah, seriously.
Oh yeah. I don't know. The guy that I was always a little bit starstruck by was Kelly Slater.
Yeah, totally.
He's pretty much the only guy that I've ever truly been starstruck by.
So real quick on that. So I obviously have been wanting to like know Kelly my whole life, being a surfer. And the first time I met him was in Cocoa Beach. And as I was going to introduce myself or say hi, I like spilled a beer all over him.
Yeah, he tripped and spilled beer all over him. And like, we know him now, but it was such a funny...
lifetime of anticipation.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Isn't that the way it goes, man?
Yep.
Yeah.
But maybe he'll never forget us because of that. You don't know.
Yeah, and I met Kelly. I met Kelly because of Peter Park as well, and in a roundabout way through Peter Park, really because of Dr. Tim Brown, who's been treating Kelly since he was like a teenager.
No way. Okay.
There's a network in surfing that's extraordinary, guys. It's extraordinary.
And pretty small. It's very small. It's like if you know one, then you know everyone. It's kind of the way
it's nuts. It's nuts. And somehow surfing knows foundation training. Which is awesome.
I got to be an honor too, because that sport
huge.
Is so intense on the body, and to have it be something that they're using and counting on your movements to help them heal through that is pretty awesome.
I feel very fortunate that those guys and girls, Lakey Peterson's been doing foundation training since she was 14 years old. I feel incredibly fortunate that I know those people and that they know my work and inadvertently, me through that. Yeah, it's awesome, guys. It's wonderful. But I gotta say, I wouldn't know these people if it wasn't for guys like Tim Brown, Peter Park, and the opportunities that they've opened the door to in the years. So I started teaching those classes, and I started like, I could make a living off those classes all of a sudden. And I was charging people donations, $10, or, basically like donation up to $10. I would have a little donation box, and they would put money in it, because I never wanted to deal with money. I would just literally put the box in the center of the class.
Was that your only source of income at the time?
At that time, that was my only source of income.
How the F were you able to live in Santa Barbara on donation buckets?
I had a girlfriend at the time. We shared rent.
Okay.
We had an apartment, small place, and I've been very lucky. Anytime I've really needed to pay a bill, my parents have kind of loaned me the money for it, and they just kind of kept a ledger of what they loaned me.
My dad too. Every penny is on a Word,
yeah,
on a Google Doc
with
somewhere with
with interest. Yeah.
Jeez, you guys take this really seriously.
Yes.
But I've been lucky with that. I have my own student debts from school, and I've paid my way through life in various ways, but they've always been there if I needed them, truly. Like, if I really, guys, I can't pay rent this month. I need $500. I need $1,000. I can't do it. They've been cool. And I leaned on them a handful of times that first couple of years. And I also it wasn't just classes, because from those classes would come private patients. And that is when income started coming in.
Okay.
I would have private patients, and only a few, but those private patients adhered to a rule that I told everybody at the very beginning, which was, guys, I treat most people for free because they can't pay. If you can pay, I need like $250 an hour from you. It's going to be a little bit more expensive, but I'm going to really work hard, and you're going to get better. I promise. We're going to get there. And I had good handful of patients that were cool with that. I even had a couple. Wayne Rosing, man. I've had some really special people in my life, guys. Wayne Rosing is, if you Google, the one person in the world you should Google is Wayne Rosing, because he made
Can you spell
Google.
That for everyone?
Yeah, Rosing.
Okay.
Wayne Rosing, who's in his late 70s now. Still does foundation training 3 to 5 days a week, and has been doing it since 2009, steadily. Wayne was my first real long-term patient, and Wayne would travel, he'd go away, but he supported me like a buddy, like a little brother almost, and he would pay me $3,000 a month to be his doctor.
Does he like art?
Yeah.
Right? Now, he doesn't do this anymore. He's now working for the past 5 years. He's been working with Darren Stockton, who's one of our foundation training instructors, and they have a wonderful relationship. And Darren has helped him tremendously with foundation training and lots of other training, cycling, all sorts of things. Darren's a former professional cyclist himself. So there's this transition where I kind of send patients on to the next person. And Wayne was the first guy that was like, "What you're doing is important, dude. He's an engineer. He developed Google. He was the chief engineer for Apple during the Macintosh and the Apple II. He was the chief engineer that wrote JavaScript for Sun Microsystems. Whoa. And he was the chief engineer that designed Google for Google. Like, he had a team of 500 engineers. Yeah, right? Like, Google, and you'll hear about Wayne Rosing. So this guy saw it as innovation of technology in the physical way. Mm-hmm. And he felt it was his duty to support me and make it so that I could keep doing it. And he made it really clear that that's what he was doing. And when he would travel sometimes for 3 months, he would still pay me, knowing that I was teaching classes, knowing that I was seeing patients, because I was working with people all the time, and I wouldn't charge him. I needed to get my work out. I needed to show people. I needed to test it. I needed to try it. I needed to learn it myself better. That lasted from about 2009 to about 2011. Okay. And there was a lot of development in that time. And I had lots of other clients and patients, lots. Derek Fisher and the Los Angeles Lakers, Luke Walton, who's now the coach for the Los Angeles Lakers. Those guys advanced their careers by 2 to 3 years, stayed on the team, stayed playing because of foundation training. And they have in my first book, Luke gave me an amazing testimonial, and there's a really nice one from Derek on there. Like, these guys won championships thanks to this work.
Well, so within
that's when I
that
met Kelly
community,
Slater.
Like, how did they hear about you? How did that happen?
They heard about it it was all through me and Peter Park.
Okay.
There was a buzz that started to happen in California, especially in Southern California, about this thing that these athletes were doing. And Peter had a wonderful reputation, and I piggybacked on his reputation as I built mine for that first couple of years. As athletes came in, they would get pain relief and fun, kind of like the fundamentals with me, and then they would train really heavy and hard with Peter about 2-3 months later. And the combination was really good. But that's also the time, like, it wasn't like I just worked with those guys. I mean, I'd go down to El Segundo and train with the Lakers from 8 to about 10 in the morning, and then I'd come back here and I'd have either a guy like Kelly or a guy like Dean or a guy like Brad or some of my local random humans that came to my classes had bad backs and we just needed to work together. So there was always this teaching. There's always somebody to share it with, always. That's became the most surprising thing, actually, is that there always seemed to be somebody that showed up to share it with, always.
Hi, Sunny. I hear that.
Yeah. Sunny says hello.
Is this the moment when you're like, yeah, I can make a living from this? Is that around this time?
That was about the time. Jen just said hello as well.
Hey, Jen.
Hi, Jen.
And Sunny just walked in there. Jay and Chelsea both say hi. That was that. Yeah, to answer your question, Jay, that was the moment I figured out I could make a living with this is when I got my first book contract, which was something I worked really hard for several years. And I remember flying out to New York with this proposal in hand, and in doing that, kind of becoming my most vulnerable version of myself, walking into these publishing houses that had never heard of us. And we got this sketchy literary agent. I'm not going to name his name, but fuck. Like, picked me and Peter up in a fancy ass, like, town car to go around New York City and then billed us for it.
Oh, God.
That kind of guy.
Wow.
And, he helped us. He took us around to HarperCollins, and he took us to Rodale, and he took us to Penguin, and he took us to Simon and Schuster and these publishers. Whoa, whoa, we're doing it. Yeah. This is probably going to happen. And they bid on it. And we didn't get a ton of money, but we got some money, man. We got a little advance. We got like $100,000, which sounds like a lot. But when you're writing a book and you have partners, yeah, it was wonderful. It was wonderful. It really, like, it made me feel like an incredibly special person. It really did. And I came back and I got my first check, and that went away quickly to pay off debt. And then I paid Peter his half, and then I actually went into debt from that book because of just poor planning, quite frankly. My writer, I have a ghostwriter because I'm not a writer. I'm a doctor. The ghostwriter costs $35,000 to $40,000.
No
and
way,
now
really?
I've learned these things. I've learned differently down the line. I do things different now. But for the first one, what people need to realize is do not write a book unless you are ready to go into debt and really trust that it was the right thing to do to get your idea out to the public.
Yeah.
And it was the right thing to do. It got my idea out to the public.
There was a bigger plan there. Yeah. It's not like you were going to make money in the book. You were going to make money on the cred that came behind.
So did the TED Talk come before or after the book?
The TED Talk came 6 months after the book was published.
So am I correct in assuming that the TED Talk was probably one of the mainstream launching points?
Yes, it was. That I'm very fortunate to have done that during kind of the earlier days of that whole thing. And it was the TEDx in Santa Barbara before. It was like one of the first TEDx events. It was cool. It was that did help. And that was my first time public speaking. And I just kind of went. I had a plan. My plans look like your sketches, Jay.
Yeah.
They're pencil. They're
Very
on a sketch
messy.
pad, and they look like diagrams
Right.
and like sketches, And I had that. But yeah, it was like the transition of 2010 to 2011 when I went from wanting to write a book to writing a book to getting it published to doing a TED Talk to starting a business, because that's when I started the business. Was like the transition of 2011 into 2012 is when foundation training went from being this kind of like, oh, let's fucking see what it is. Let's see what we can do with this thing. At least I'm helping myself and a few people, into, all right, we need to certify people. We need to teach people how to teach this. This needs to become something that's a part of physical medicine. That's our goal. That's my goal, to make this work and these principles a part of what doctors learn into the future of medicine. That's it. So that became the goal.
So I was just going to ask. So at this point, I could imagine how it must have felt starting a business, seeing it work, seeing like, yeah, this is really going somewhere, getting $100,000 check for a book. I got to ask from a business perspective, what was and is stopping someone from giving it a different name and just doing the same damn thing and like ripping you off? Is there any protection on your side besides like brand, authenticity and your marketing? Is there anything else stopping someone from stealing this, or?
We have trademarks and copyrights in place. I have copyrights on about 24 exercises between the two books, but
okay.
Man, I'm never going to enforce that stuff. That's not me. It's not how I am.
Don't say that on the podcast.
Let me finish.
Yeah.
And I talked to lawyers about this, and my dad's an attorney, and I've gone to lawyers about stuff like this, and I've defended my work, successfully, and it ain't worth it. Yeah. If somebody really wants to steal this, it's not my job to defend myself against them. It's my job to do it better. That's it. Yeah. And if I can't do it better, maybe they should steal it. Maybe they should take it. Maybe they have a better way of improving it, because I did this to make a theory. I did this to make a change in medicine, not to be the guy that's the only guy that does this. Like, I have 1,000 instructors right now. Like I don't want to be the only guy. I want to see people take this work and improve it. My only hope I ever have is that people will call it foundation training, because I've worked for many years now to make this one thing called foundation training. I've had people steal from me. I've had people take and use liberties and all that stuff. And I've sent 1 or 2 cease and desist letters, and it's gone easily. But in truth, the only thing stopping anybody from stealing this and taking it from me is reputation and my ability to do this work well and to be a driving force in it.
And also putting out there that if you're not trained properly, that's when like injuries happen. You kind of want to know that you're going to someone that knows what they're doing.
Of course. That's public. When you're in the public, that's up to them to decipher, though.
Yeah.
And that's why I have certified instructors. That's why if you go on the website, you can find those certified instructors, and they're listed on there. It's up to individuals not to be dicks. It's up to, and
I'm going to quote you on that one.
Like, it really is. And
oh, man.
If they can't get it together, then it's up to the other individuals of the community to show them their ways wrong. And what's really neat about our work is I've never really had to defend it all that much, because it's publicly defended. Meaning, if my instructors, if our group of people see somebody taking our work, they very quickly tell them. Very quickly. I've seen it on some really heavy-hitting people, actually. Like big names in the sports medicine world, big names in the medical world, and some athletes and trainers that have taken some of our work, taken liberties with decompression breathing, which has never existed before foundation training. Like, there's a million breathing patterns, but you've never seen decompression breathing until you did this.
I got to
thorough research.
I got to say this because there's probably people listening to us now or listening to us as individuals somewhere else that have an idea, have a dream, have a passion, but what's stopping them is it seems too hard, it costs too much money, someone else can probably do it better, someone could steal my idea, why should I bother? All these different understandings and paradigms of business in the world. And here's your story, being hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt, working and living off of a donation can, building an entire culture.
Donation can be a bit dramatic.
Well, you know what I mean.
He wasn't on a street corner, but
it was jingling he was playing a banjo on a corner.
We're gonna quote that as your bio.
Teaching donation classes in Santa Barbara might be different than somewhere.
Correction noted. But you know what I mean. Like, if you're able to do this and you're able to turn all of a series of movements into a culture and a business, there really is no good excuse for someone not to take their idea and run with it if they think it's worthy.
Well, it won't be easy, but it'll be worth it.
Right.
You'll have a lot of opportunities to quit and to kind of be a jerk along the way too. And you got to really choose those wisely as you go, and you got to listen to people on your periphery. You're not going to know the best answer after a little while because you're too into it. You're too there. You're the elephant is right in front of you. You can't see over it. So you have to really start taking advice. That's been kind of the biggest thing I did. I brought a gentleman in named Ian Silverberg back in 2011, and he is no longer my partner, but he was a really valuable teacher and helper and advisor for many years. So, I've recently, in 2018, I took over the business. I bought back my rights, literally. Went a little further into debt, but created the thing that I want it to be, created the team I want and need. And I couldn't have done that without the advice I took along the way, or the lessons I learned along the way, or the help I had along the way from just like a lot of people. So you're not doing anything yourself. You're setting the path towards the vision you have for what your life could be, and you're doing everything in your power to stay on that path and try. But what ends up happening is people get inspired along the way, and they want to learn too. They want to see, they're trying to find their path, and potentially yours could get them a little closer to theirs. So what happens is there's this bartering, there's this exchange where you can teach them or help them or show them or train them, and they can help you. And it's really valuable. And that's kind of been what it's been along the way.
I love that. And I think I actually love the parallel, because I think some of the times that Jay and I both maybe stalled along our path was when we weren't taking as much advice from people, not advice, but we weren't seeking further expansion from other people. And I know like Jay recently has been working with his book coach, Azul, who has just been one of those people that is wiser than most and helps us out. And I know for me as a doula, like you work with these women who have witnessed 500 babies being born, and I'm just hungry for it, like give me all of your information. And I think it's like when you hit, maybe that's an age thing. You come along these paths and you're like, I'm only going to get wiser if I listen to other people at this point. You have to let go of the ego and take more in. I think it's just a beautiful process to see, and probably the reason for growth. I don't think you can keep expanding unless you're taking advice,
There's no way. It's like getting high on your own supply. You end up believing your own stuff. You're too close. Too many people have told you do a good job.
Yes, exactly.
You can't listen to that stuff. It's the same. When somebody tells you a positive thing, it's the same energy as somebody saying a negative thing. They should both kind of roll off. They should, because neither of them has anything to do with you, really. Mm-hmm. And yeah, man, I don't know. It's just, this has been such an adventure that I would never trade for anything in the world. I try to inspire people to do what they want to do, because it makes a really big difference in life.
Yeah. Well, so with that said, do you prefer, I think Jay and I both have the aspects of our business where we are teachers. We're both, Jay teaches art. Mm-hmm. He's a teacher in many capacities. I teach birth classes. I teach doulas. I teach lots of ways. And you obviously are teaching and training and teaching other people. Do you prefer that side, or do you prefer the business side? What side of it is the most inspiring for you?
I don't like business at all.
Okay.
I'm doing it out of necessity so I can keep teaching. Okay. Because I only want to keep teaching and training. That's what I want to do. Like I love that part of it. Feeds me deeply, intensely. The business part of it drains me deeply, intensely. It's a balance right now.
Yeah.
I've been very lucky to have I still work with my closest friends, which is awesome. They're stepping up. They're stepping up their game a lot. We've had some really interesting people, actually an artist, a true artist, man, a painter turned marketing person, very successful in New York for many years, who randomly found us. She had gotten a lot of benefit from the work. It got her back into a place where she could live her life for a couple of years. And Jesse and I were at the beach slacklining one day, and she literally ran up to us. "You're the guy. Whoa, you helped me." "Yeah. What's up? How are you, crazy lady?" Turns out she ended up, long story short, over a few months, Jesse worked with her for a while and really dialed her in. And she gave us some incredible strategic advice as a barter for that. And she changed the environment that I'm doing business in right now. We have new logos. We have new websites being built. We got a lot of cool stuff coming.
Yeah, it all looks really beautiful. I was just checking it all out.
Could you share any of that advice, Eric?
What's that?
Is there any of that advice that stands out that maybe someone else could learn from that you'd be willing to share?
The only one that really the one that's had the biggest impact on me is very specific advice that she gave me regarding a couple people that I was continuing to do business with that I knew deep down I did not want to, but I felt an obligation for whatever weird reason, not because of them, but because of me. And she sat me down and had a really nice discussion with me about how that hurts them. It really does. It doesn't let them know the truth of how I feel. And I took the initiative to change some things, to let some people go their way and to continue going mine. and to bring the people that I really had been working on and with for a while into the fold. And that changed a lot for me. It changed my confidence while I'm teaching. It allowed me not to kind of be looking over my shoulder at all during any of my events. I really sincerely, I don't ever want to look over my shoulder when I'm teaching my work. I want to know that everybody around me is teaching to a high level and behaving in a really proper way. Like, it's ain't Bikram, man. This is foundation training. This is very different. This isn't spiritual shit. This isn't taking advantage of anything. This is biomechanical teaching. That's it.
Yeah, and I just think that's so relatable for every business owner, because sometimes that's the truth. If you're the owner, you need to be the owner and make those hard decisions, and it's really hard for people to step into that place sometimes. I know for me, it's one of the hardest parts of my job is to make those decisions.
I shed tears for a few things. When I see something really inspiring, like somebody getting their goal, winning their thing, you know, that they worked on forever, and when I have to let people go because I know I have to let people go and I have to do it, and it's not an option anymore. That's when I literally have to kind of sit down and like be with that for like, fuck. Yeah, it hurts, but I got to do this. It's been a long time. I see where it could go, but it's just not going there, and I can't change this person, and they can't change me. So I gotta make that call. And then when you make the call, you're like,
oh, it feels like it should have always been that way. Yeah,
it's a selfish feeling, but it's towards a selfless act, which allows me to, I guess, kind of like be okay with it. Because in order to get my goal of foundation training where I need it to go, or where I feel I need it to go, I had to bring people on that could carry us there. And man, if you're building a team, if you notice, not that there's poor performance or anything like that, but if there's a legitimate perspective difference between the teacher and the kind of the head teacher, the lead teacher, you got to make some changes.
I have a question about your pick up and go lifestyle that you and Jen have adopted for you guys and your daughter Sunny. Since I've known you, you've probably lived in at least 4 places that I can recall. Most recently, moving to and from Hawaii, which seemed like in a week.
It was 2.5 months.
2.5 months. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean,
that was out of necessity.
Okay, so like, I mean, that's the sort of lifestyle that most people dream of, being able to be mobile, to pick up and go, do your own thing. Is that something that was by design and with intention with your career, especially, or was it just like, oh, well, I have a job where I can do it, so why not? Or did the intention to be mobile come first, and then you found a job to fit that?
Oh, no. Being mobile had nothing to do with my life until it did. In 2013, I started getting a little bit restless. I had been in Santa Barbara for a long time. I'd written the first book, and I was in the process of writing the second book, and I had made the business changes that made a business, and I had a certification that was successful for like a year or so at that point, and year and a half maybe. And then Jen moved from Florida out to California, and she moved in with me and started like enjoying the house, but wanting to travel to Oregon, wanting to go out to Colorado, decided to rent an RV for a couple weeks to just go. And we really fell in love with the RV that we rented. We loved that ability. And what I noticed is that I could teach foundation training to anyone, anywhere. And it only served to help me expand the work. So we didn't give ourselves a timeline or anything like that, but we made the call after a few months of looking to get rid of our house that we were renting in Santa Barbara and to buy an RV, a big one. Don't think that we were going around in some van, man. We did it on the. We
went all in.
Yeah, we went all in. We got a nice little.
Didn't you have
we got
an Instagram
used,
for your van or something?
We did at first. It was called the Wellness Wagon at first.
Right, the Wellness Wagon.
Then we switched that up. But we ended up on the road for damn near 4 years, and I taught a lot of classes and a lot of certifications in that time, and I met a lot of people, and so did Jen. And you know, Jen's a pediatric physical therapist. She's got her skill set as well that fits very nicely into this work. So she'd work with babies and stuff here and there, and parents along the way. We inspired a couple of our other instructors to do the same thing by just kind of doing it. And for a couple of years, we had it was kind of a small crew of us on the road. It was really neat. We lived in the RV. And then we would rent house. If it got frustrating, we would like rent a house for a couple months if we needed to. Mostly in California. We did it once in Oregon. We did it once in Colorado. We did it once then we moved out to Hawaii for a while. And when we moved to Hawaii, we found that the home we moved into was just too moldy for us to really be healthy in. So they allowed us to get out of that home, which is why we moved back to California to kind of think it through a little bit more appropriately before the next round. And we love Carpinteria, Santa Barbara area. I love it here. It's where my community is, and Jen seems to love it here, so it's a good spot. Our lifestyle definitely was built around trying to share foundation training in as grassroots a way as possible. That was the basis of kind of agreeing to do the RV and going for it, was that we could share. And I wanted to write my book on the road instead of sitting in an office or sitting in my room.
I love it because you do realize like you've basically created a lifestyle of a rock star, but you're just teaching foundation training instead. Like it's like we want to hit the road, we want to be on tour, let's do it.
Yeah, well, we just want to go. I don't know, we just want to go, and I'm getting a little bit less of that lately, but I still want to go. Like I would love to go to Hawaii right now.
Well, so how old is Sunny right now?
She's 11 months.
Okay.
She turned 11 months
how has that
last
changed
Thursday.
with her, or has it not really changed?
No, it's changed.
Okay.
It's changed. It's harder for us to just get up and go, and it's a lot of stress on Jen. You know, Jen is, I'm a full-time foundation owner and runner, and Jen has definitely done the lion's share of the hands-on work with Sunny thus far in those first 11 months. So for me to move us puts a lot more stress on her than on me, I'm finding. And being back here in California has been a little bit better. She's able to get into a routine, which is important. Sunny, luckily, has been very healthy and wonderful the whole time. Jen's really good with her. I'm good with her too, but Jen's like, that's her skill set.
Yeah.
You know, I have no skills as a parent other than being a human male. So I'm learning how to do it as I go. I'm learning, and it's neat. How has it changed? Yeah, it's changed. It's changed our lives. There's more at stake.
Yeah.
You know, there's more reality sprinkled into all of the visions, certainly, and all of the future planning.
That is a really good description. That is like so true. There's more reality sprinkled in. I feel like your dreams are so big for so long, and then it's like, but wait, to actually pull that off, we would need to fly with 5 human beings, 300 suitcases. Like it's like so much.
Learned that last year.
And you guys got 3.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
it's next level. But you guys are also you're showing people like me that, hey, you can do this. You can have fun with it.
Yeah, no, it's doable
once
they're at this age. That's for sure. It gets easier.
It seems like it gets better. Not better. Better is I hear people say better all the time, myself included in this, but it's not better. It's evolved.
Yeah.
You understand better. You're more informed as a parent once they get older too.
Well, plus they can be like, Mom, I'm really tired. I think I need to go home, instead of just yeah.
Instead of interpreting a sound, you're like, oh, you're
Yeah.
tired.
Yeah.
Oh,
Got
human
it.
communication. That's pretty cool.
Jen's on it, man. She's been doing some attachment parenting. She's been doing this like on demand peeing and feeding and pooping. And Sunny's a wonderful human, wonderful,
awesome.
Beautiful, adorable human being. I feel.
Well, hopefully you will
lucky
actually. I
after
feel
as a
like we're
daughter.
always on the wrong coast, but maybe in our spring California tour, you will be around.
I hope so. I'd love to see you guys.
Yeah.
Love to take you to play.
We have a couple more questions. Are you okay on time?
I'm fine.
Okay.
I blocked the week for this call.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Great.
Well, let's
it.
get going. I'm just imagining people listening to this first coming into this idea of foundation training, and I have a couple of friends and family members who have gone through surgery with their backs or are contemplating it. So talking about people that are pre-surgery but maybe we're in a situation like you, can you give people an idea of what to really expect with foundation training, whether that comes in the form of statistics or a time frame? What would you say to people who have been told like surgery is the only option?
First thing I would say is check your source. If the only source you have telling you that surgery is the only option is a surgeon, go to another doctor that's not a surgeon. Go see what their perspective tells you about your injury. If you haven't gone to a chiropractor, go to a trusted chiropractor in the community. Look at things like acupuncture. And this isn't coming from me, by the way. This is the American College of Physicians and Harvard Medical Schools. This is their decision on back pain. Surgical intervention is not as effective as other means unless absolutely necessary. Those other means are massage, exercise, chiropractic, nutrition, mental health therapy, all these things, stretching. I mean, all of this stuff other than surgery and procedures. Mm. What you can expect with something like foundation training is if it's going to work, you're going to notice shifts relatively quickly within a matter of a few days. I'm not saying you're going to get better in a matter of a few days. I'm saying you're going to notice shifts in how you feel. You're going to be moving more confidently, and you're going to be trying to find the symptom that you came to it for. That's if it's working. You're going to find it again. You're going to find the pain again. But as you get better with foundation training, you're going to have a better experience of getting yourself out of those symptoms if it's working. That should continue for quite a long time as you improve your ability to understand the work and perform the work. If you're somebody that's been told you need your microdiscectomy, you need a laminectomy, you need a fusion, you need a nerve block, and you haven't tried those other things, you are out of your mind to get surgery first.
Okay.
Out of your mind.
All the ectomies.
Not because you can't get surgery and not because surgery is wrong. It's because you haven't tried the non-invasive processes that have a tendency to work better or at least as well as surgery.
Okay.
So
crazy to do that.
What about people that have gone through that and have been told or are convinced that it's absolutely necessary and have gone through it, or people that maybe didn't think to get a second opinion and went through surgery? Now these people are listening like, oh, fuck, why did I do that?
And I still have back pain.
Yeah, like for instance, Chelsea's mom had surgery, and she's still in terrible pain.
Long time ago, yeah.
I mean, and there's tons of people out there like that have gone through surgery, they're listening to this, and they're like, freaking A, why did I do that? Is there any hope for them after the knife?
Of course. Huge hope. Gigantic hope. Gigantic hope.
Tell people what to expect.
Especially if you've had a spine surgery.
Okay.
If you've had a spine surgery, it is only going to make your body a little bit more fixed in space. And if the spine is working well, it's relatively rigid, guys. It's not super movable. Rigidity in the spine is okay. Rigidity in the hips is not okay. And it's usually why your spine is so bad. When I recommend surgeries to people, I recommend 2 surgeries more than anything else: hip replacement and knee replacement. Those are my surgeries to fix spines most of the time. Because when those hip joints move well, the spine naturally alleviates tension. When you've had surgery, even fusion, I have so many people that have had fusion surgeries that have come through my program. So many. All of them successful? Of course not. Most of them successful? Yes. If you've had the surgery, you do the same protocol. You learn decompression breathing. You learn standing decompression and lunge decompression and founders and anchored extensions and these different movements that are going to help stabilize your spine. And you train your body just like you would otherwise. You do your absolute best to keep it lined up and to keep it strong, even though you had surgery. And if you're like the vast majority of people that have come through our program in that scenario with a failed surgery or a relatively failed surgery, I hope that you get the benefits that the rest of them have gotten. Same thing, improved posture, pain relief, a little bit of better performance. That's kind of what happens. Surgery gives you a little bit of a kind of a thorn in your side, but it doesn't make it impossible. I mean, I work with quadriplegic people. You know, we work with people that have really severe limitations that still find the ability to improve on their situation, not to cure themselves, not to be 100%, but to improve upon their situation, which is the goal.
So you earlier had described foundation training as sort of like an accessory to other trainings. You mentioned how Pilates it seemed like you were describing it almost like it's complementary, and I've always kind of thought of like rock climbing and yoga as, for instance, being very complementary. One's very push and one is very pull. So I really would love to know, especially with your more limited schedule, like being a dad now and your business being so crazy, what does Eric Goodman's workout routine consist of? And maybe if you can tell us why you chose those specific things.
Sure. I have like 3 or 4 major things that I do. One of them is foundation training. I do it all the time. I don't necessarily follow I'm going to do it for 15 minutes today, but I do foundation training all the time. And now we have a lot of our instructors that have workouts on our website, so I can go listen to somebody else and take their workout instead of listening to myself, which is good. I do kettlebells like once or twice a week, and I don't do them super heavy. I just swing a kettlebell, and I do some kind of weighted carries, things that keep the right type of compression on the torso, a healthy compression that allows strength to develop. I do
Are you
surf.
with kettlebells? Are you doing like just standard kettlebell swings, or do you have a
Yeah.
kettlebell routine?
No, I don't have I love Pavel Tsutsouline,
Okay.
Strong First. I learned most of my kettlebell stuff from Jesse, my brother-in-law, who was certified in Strong First and a very talented, very strong guy. So, the 10 by 10 swings, 5 by 10, maybe 5 or 10 40-yard or 80-yard weighted carries with like 50 to 100 pounds in each arm.
Okay.
And remember, I'm a bigger guy. I'm not a small person. I take up a little space, so I need a little bit of weight to make a difference on there.
And are you constantly increasing the weight, the reps, the sets, or just sticking to what works?
Sticking to what works.
Okay.
Maintaining strength, maintaining range of motion, maintaining fitness. I take either I do like a really intense hike or run, or do like some spin. I've been starting to getting into a interval bike class that's based on spinning. But it's a little different. It's much more range of motion. There's some foundation training before and after it. There's some yoga before and after it, and then these like kind of intense intervals during it. That's my routine. And then I surf. I surf a lot. I surf as much as I can. Pick up my kid here and there. Pick up Jen here and there.
And is surfing more of a fun thing for you, or do you consider that part in the fitness routine?
Definitely part of it. That's the balanced fitness. That's good for respiration. It's good for shoulder mobility. It's good for everything. It's good for mental health.
So no more yoga at all, or do you still do it?
I don't do much. It's not that I'm not into yoga. It's that I've never jived fully with yoga. Okay. I've never found a yoga class where I was like, that's it.
Oh my gosh.
But I do love individual yoga. I do love individual yoga poses. Yeah. So, every now and then, sure. But I'll admit, I do favor the foundation training and strength work a lot more, substantially more. But that's a biased opinion.
Yeah, well, and some things just work better for certain bodies, as I'm sure we all learn along the way.
And what might like a foundation routine look like for someone starting? Can you describe that? What kind of time commitment should someone commit to?
10 minutes a day at first. And honestly, if you just do 10 minutes a day, that's okay. If that's it forever, that's the basis of this, is to give you a little bit, not to change your life forever in one day. It's to slowly and steadily build upon the patterns you're trying to build.
So there's really no excuse not to do this, is basically, unless you're a total lazy ass.
You're just being lazy, and you don't, and you want to say you're going to feel better, but you don't really want to make the effort. Effort is required, no matter what. Effort is required.
Awesome.
In so many things.
So we're wrapping it up, but we have one question we like to ask everyone. So, what I want to know is, if we put you back in your childhood kitchen, what's the first thing that you see, smell? What comes to mind?
My mom used to make noodle kugel. I grew up in a Jewish family, and she would make this noodle kugel, and she would make this chicken and rice dish that was so good.
All right. I don't know what kugel
we always had the TV
is. What does kugel mean?
It's like another pasta dish, but it's made with I think there's maybe cottage cheese or ricotta cheese or something like that. Some kind of cheese in there.
Okay.
And pineapples. It's kind of sweet. It's really good. It's really, really good.
I love that. And TV always on. That was my
TV was always on during meals in my house, which we don't even have a TV now. So I think that was maybe I wasn't into that when I was growing up.
Generational though, I think. That was
absolutely
the thing you did.
Yeah. And it was so different. I mean, there was a few things to watch, and now there's everything to watch at once.
So are there any other topics or things you'd like to say that we didn't mention? Anything we didn't cover, or words of wisdom that we can cap things off with, Eric?
You're a really good painter because you paint a lot. Draw a lot.
I'll take it.
The things we do a lot are the things we're good at. If you don't do it a lot, you're going to have a really hard time expressing the value of it to others. So no matter what it is that a person wants to do, you got to do it a lot. If it's how you're going to define part of your life, if it's how you're going to define part of your career or part of your family or part of your path, it's not wake up every day and know that you're doing the right thing. It's remind yourself every day that you're doing the right thing by doing it.
Yeah.
By taking steps.
Purpose.
Yeah. It's just don't think about it, or don't let thinking about it stand in the way of the process of one brick at a time building something. And it might take 1,000,000 bricks and you might not ever finish, but it's the building process that's so interesting and so cool. And so life affirming in a lot of ways. So,
yeah.
If you build it, they will come, whatever it is.
There's so much of the love of the journey that is in all of these stories, including my own. When I talk to artists, they'll mention or ask me questions about painting, and it seems like they're always like in a rush. They're like, well, if I did that, or if I tried to paint that, it would take me X amount of weeks or months or years. And I'm like, so fucking do it, Like people are like so much in a rush to do things they love. Like I can't imagine.
And then what?
Yeah, it's like, why would you rush sex or a great meal? Like, it's just idiotic. Like, if you enjoy doing something, you're passionate about doing something, whether it's work or, a hobby or whatever, take your time and enjoy every step of the way.
Mm-hmm. Have you ever heard of Martin Sexton, the musician?
I don't know if I have.
The name,
it sounds familiar.
Yeah, but I don't know why.
He's an East Coast guy as well, Northeast Coast. But he's been my favorite musician since about 2004.
Okay.
And still is. And his one song got me through so many moments in my life. Real moments. Real stuff that a lot of people will never contend with. Failure on a very high level. Very high level. Personal failure. Personal insecurity on a very high level. And he has a song called In the Journey. And man, listen to it. Go listen to Martin Sexton, In the Journey, and that's the best advice I can give.
Wow, okay. So before we close the call up, which, first of all, thank you, but where can people find you? Where can they find more about Foundation Training? I know the website, foundationtraining.com, you said is being rebuilt, but it's incredibly thorough. It has so much great information. Are there any social media you want to shout out? Any programs coming up?
Just Foundation Training. All our social media is all Foundation Training.
Okay.
My personal one is Doc Goodman, but you're not going to like me as much as you're going to like Foundation Training.
I don't know about that.
No, just go to the website, guys. Foundationtraining.com. If you want to support us, it's awesome. I truly appreciate it. But if you just want to learn the work, that's cool too. And I hope it helps you. And I really do. Deep down, I hope it helps you because that's what it's for.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Eric. This was really amazing.
Yeah, I mean, thank you for what I think is close to 10 years of friendship. I'm so grateful for you as a friend and also someone that I am constantly still learning from and being inspired by. And this has just been an amazingly enlightening call. And, I'm just super grateful for you, man.
Likewise. Seriously. Thank you for just being not only a cool artist and a good artist and a talented artist, but a good family guy and a good mentor to me from afar in a lot of ways as you're going through your life. And I have a goal that as one day this business will turn profitable enough that we will have some disposable income somewhere, some way. And when we do, I'm going to commission a painting from you. And I can't wait to do it. That's like my goal.
I think you have to have like a house that's not on wheels. And
We're going. I know there's a lot of steps we have to take. There's a lot of steps we have to take.
I will tell you this: that when that day happens, I will be excited because then I will have some disposable income.
Yes, sir. That's right.
Man.
That's right.
Awesome.
No, I really appreciate you guys. Thanks for including me in what you're doing in lots of ways.
Yeah,
awesome,
send our love to Jen and Sunny, and we will
big
talk
hugs
to you
and kisses.
soon.
Thanks, guys. I'll talk to you soon.
All right, later, brother.
Okay, bye-bye.
Hey guys, if you enjoyed that episode with Eric Goodman as much as we did, can you please take a moment, do us a favor, leave us a review on iTunes and share with friends? It really helps us so much. Now, to get you guys started on your journey with Foundation Training, head over to shiftingperceptionspodcast.com and check out the detailed show notes. We'll have highlights from this episode, video links, and some information on the things we talked about. Also, if you'd like to check out my artwork, you can go to jalders.com. You can follow me on social media at jalders. And my beautiful wife, Chelsea, can be found on Instagram at Chelsea Alders or at omamasdoulas or omamasdoulas.com. We really appreciate you guys listening. Please leave us comments, send us messages, share with friends. We will talk to you guys next week. Thank you again so much. Lots of love.